Hello, you are welcome to the 5th episode of our podcast. Today we're talking on how to develop core competencies in political leadership in Nigeria. Peter Drucker said leadership is doing the right thing or doing the right things. So competent political leadership is the primal element that can cause a country or nation to move in a desired direction. A competent political leader cannot lead effectively without knowing what competency is all about. How else would resources be harnessed to work with others and achieve set goals other than being a competent person in leadership? A competent political leader relies on knowledge and discipline to navigate through difficult political and governing terrains. Discipline is very important when you talk of political leadership. Knowledge is very important because it doesn't call for might. It doesn't call for manipulations. It doesn't call for the use of force. It doesn't call for fight. It calls for use of knowledge and being disciplined. One Montgomery, a British field marshal, said leadership is the capacity and will to rally men and women to a common purpose and the character which inspires confidence in people. So we must therefore be able to define our common purpose as a country and decide how to achieve it. This is where you will find having a vision and having the strategy to go about it. Good as the projections we have, whether you have it a 2, 3, 5 year plan, but if there is no discipline and strategy to achieve it, we'll just be going around in cycles. Therefore, a leader has the responsibility, a political leader has the responsibility of ensuring that these purposes are achieved by rallying the people to contribute towards the achievement of the goal. Here we need to be very careful when we talk of quota system or we talk of mediocrity. They are good systems, but when you go to an area, you need the area to give you the best in terms of merit and not whose face is favored, whose name is favored, or who can go around and manipulate people to do what the system does not encourage. A political leader is not to impose his opinion on people, but must understand the collective aspirations of the people and work to make them a reality. Political leaders must be able to provide the vision that will unite all Nigerians to move towards the goal that we have all identified ourselves with. If people don't own a program, if people don't own a goal, they will leave it that is your goal. It is a goal for party ABC. But our common good should not be left to the dictates of a few among us. That is why it's important to read the works of the likes of John Maxwell and other political and other seasoned writers. And for instance, John Maxwell said that a leader should be able to see before others see, farther than others can ever see. Do we have such people? Yes, we have them. Do we allow them come up? Very difficult, if not impossible. So that you will find a tendency of people that are showing up for leadership, political leadership, may not necessarily know the need of the people and may not be willing to accommodate the needs of others. A political leader is a reader. He's a reader of situations, trends, resources, people, and even himself. Because we have tendencies of people who can read situations, but don't read themselves. And if you find a leader who doesn't understand and read himself, leadership in the hand of that person will have sorry tales to show. We must be a people who should be interested in allowing our systems to work. He must be able to communicate his vision with such clarity and simplicity so as to carry everyone along. Then our core leadership competencies. These are specific skills that leaders should develop effectively in leading their teams. Some of these skills can be interpersonal core competencies, which entails functional communication, emotional intelligence, relationship building, and conflict management. Of all these, Nigeria is suffering the lack of political leaders who are intentional about building relationship across our cultures. And we are suffering, and we have a dear need of political leaders who should be working on conflict management. He is not sending threats, he is not shutting down people, but management of conflict of a culturally multiplied, a multiple cultural people like Nigeria, who calls for conflict management skills. We have logistics core competencies. These are skills for planning and execution, decision making and task delegation. And finally, internal core competencies, which are skills on how leaders perceive themselves and their learning and growing. Simply, these are skills. This is a skill for self-assessment, self-reflection, and personal accountability. This view is shared by a political group known as the Career Guide. Because when you have people who are in leadership, but they lack self-assessment, they don't do self-reflection, they don't have personal accountability, you will find that resources are going into the drain, but nothing is coming to meet the needs of the common people. So it's better to talk on developing core competencies. How can we develop core competencies? One, we need to develop emotional intelligence. Leaders have to develop the ability to perceive and understand emotions as well as team members and stakeholders. How? Observe yourself as a leader. How do you react to your feelings? Empathize with others. Do not assume about others. Rather, place yourself in their shoes. Learn to observe non-verbal communication. Body language speaks louder than words sometimes. 2, build relationships with team members and stakeholders across our cultural divide. Since politics and governance have varying dynamics, a competent political leader depends on individual character and the ability to work with other people in bringing growth and achieving the goal. When this is lacking, several things will go amiss. So we need to build trust between team members and stakeholders. across board. How can we achieve this? We can achieve this by being open to the concerns of the people around us. Work for the common good of all. Hold yourself accountable as a leader. 3, you need to strengthen conflict management skills. Varying views and stance is common in a cultural country like Nigeria. Therefore, to be a competent political leader, you need to cultivate a positive environment. The promotion of collaboration is critical, and resolution of issues. You don't push issues under the carpet. You don't threaten people. You don't use force on people. To achieve this, you need to hold your feelings in check as a leader. You need to be active in listening and discuss problems and try to understand everyone's perspective. Identify the cause rather than treating symptoms. Sometimes you can say that we are specialists in this country in treating symptoms. That is why the things keep reoccurring year in, year out. From 1960 to today, we have some things that have been reoccurring, like the issue of snatching ballot boxes during elections, burning electoral materials, attacking the electoral body, staff, and the rest of these things that keep reoccurring. Is because we always treat the symptoms. We need to be skillful in decision making, or political leaders need to be skillful in decision making. This involves the full analysis of situations, understanding the potential impacts of each possible decision and its possible outcome. How? By evaluating the significance of the decision, consider its short and long-term effect, and identify alternative ways. There's virtually no one thing that you can say this is the only way to do it. You have many ways of doing the same thing. Particularly, you have to go around to find a way that is workable. 5, you need to practice delegation. To know your strengths and those of your team members, you need to assign tasks to people accordingly. So you follow the best process and hire the best hands to deal with situations that will bring the results. You need to build trust in members to enable delegation. You need to practice functional communication within the team and stakeholders. 6, you need to practice self-reflection. This allows for thoughtful decisions and identifying areas to improve. How? Remember to examine your actions. You need to reflect on the outcome. You need to keep checking your vision and your strategy day in, day out as a leader. And one final point is practice taking responsibility. This is one word that many political leaders and aspiring political leaders are not taking it serious. Responsibility. Once you talk of responsibility, you talk of accountability. You don't need EFCC and ICPC to come and remind you, give account of what you were given as a duty. In rare cases, they can come to remind people. But virtually, we should not have them going after everybody. It means people don't understand what responsibility is all about. And responsibility starts with personal responsibility and then corporate responsibility. And this is a critical strength in political leadership because it institutes and promotes fairness, justice, it builds trust, and seeks correction. How can you achieve this? You have to redefine your personal views on success and failure. What does it mean to succeed? What does it mean to fail? When you have a political leadership trust that is given to you, it's not your success that should measure how long you have been in the office or how successful you are, but the lives of the people you are representing. How have you improved their lives? There should be the yardstick. It is not your personal successes that should be the yardstick. So you need to consider others before your interests and be a model above all. So therefore, it's good to look at worthy examples of competent political leaders. It will help us. During the Second World War, between 1939 to 1945, Britain, in this 5-year bombardment, they needed a leader. They needed a leader. Without good and competent leaders, in times like this, you have a sorry state. So in all the 60,595 civilians that were killed and 86,182 that were seriously injured, the issue of rationing of food that began in January 1940, and clothes that were shared to people beginning in June 1941, all these were the responsibility that Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill was handling. How have Nigerian political leaders managed the crisis we are going through? How have they? It's good enough when you have IDPs. But what happens at the IDPs? Who is in charge of what? Who is accountable for what? So we need leaders, political leaders, like Winston Churchill, that are courageous in ability to stand as a voice for the people. We also need to understand one thing about Churchill. He understood exactly what needed to be done in order to accomplish his primary goals, even if it requires hardships and sacrifice. He did it and willingly did it. That is why history cannot forget him. That should be the aspiration of our political leaders and aspiring political leaders. We have George Washington, the first president of the United States of America. He had the opportunity to continue as a military president. He had the opportunity to be a king of America, but he rejected it. He rejected monarchy and called for independence and political leadership, which came to be in July 9th, 1776. Even when he was prompted and encouraged by army officers, one of which was called Colonel Louis Nicola, he sent a personal letter to George Washington to continue as a king, but he said no for political leadership. So we need people like this in times like this, particularly in this country. We also have other examples like that of Singapore. Singapore came out of Malaysia and became an independent in August 9th, 1965, 5 years after Nigeria became independent. But today, Singapore is no longer a third world country. Singapore is a developed nation, a nation without any resources, mineral resources, like Nigeria. But see what is happening. The issue of self-sufficiency and determination, they have put it behind them. Why can't we do that? That is why the likes of the Prime Minister Lu Keong can never be forgotten, because of how they changed the country from a developing nation to a developed nation within a period of time. He forged a highly effective anti-corruption government and civil service. Today, do we have any story to tell? Can we compare ourselves to Singapore? No. We need to look inward and find out what is happening and be able to do something. Remember Singapore, at their independence, inequality was there, but they treated it. Also, you talk of Botswana. At independence, this issue of injustice, inequality was very high in Botswana. Unemployment was very high. But today, Botswana has treated all those, and they are way ahead of national and personal well-being, ahead of Nigeria. We need to think twice about what is happening. And Botswana today is considered to be a successful country because of our impressive economic record. And it was built on a foundation of just one mineral resource, diamond. But they have prudent fiscal policies and a cautious foreign policy. It's not an open market that can take a people anywhere. Today, Botswana is rated high by World Bank, particularly in their report in 1999. They rated high the fiscal policy, the fiscal discipline of Botswana. So we need to be prudent in our fiscal policy, prudent in social and macroeconomic policies as a people. And one most important thing that we need to do is be committed to investing in health and education. These are programs, these are two institutions that are primary in having a people becoming what will be an envy of the time. Nigeria can better identify and develop our next generation of political leaders by using competency-based approach. The core competencies are: one, specific skills that leaders should develop to effectively lead their teams. B, interpersonal core competencies: functional communication, emotional intelligence, relationship building, and conflict management. C, logistics core competencies. So thank you for giving us your time. Pray that you will think over what we're discussing, and you stay tuned to our next episode. Thank you.